How is it going, everyone? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day so far, but it's time to talk about My Hero Academia, Season 2, Episode 18, The Aftermath of Hero Killer Stain. And even though that this is a in-between episode of the two arcs that we're going to be getting for the rest of this season, we learned a lot of information in this episode. I took a lot of notes, and I definitely want to hit on a lot of those points that kind of got mentioned within this episode. I rewatched it twice just to get a grasp of everything in this episode, and I feel like I have everything I definitely want to talk about and discuss. But the first thing on that list is talking about Hero Killer Stain. As we see in this episode, even though that Stain is being locked up and arrested, his ideals and his motivations are going to be driving these new villains popping up into the story of My Hero Academia. And the interesting part about that is that they're all going to be going towards Shigaraki's organization of the League of Villains. And I know that Shigaraki is going to be so pissed once he learns that all these new villains are joining him because of Stain. Because we know Shigaraki hates Stain, and the only reason he brought out his Nomus is because he wanted to overshadow Stain, and he wanted to be the top story. But it turns out Hero Killer Stain being arrested was still the top story, and his Nomu attack was basically sidelined for everyone talking about Hero Killer Stain. So getting to see how pissed he was at that, and not to mention that all these new villains are going to be going to the League of Villains, talking to Shigaraki, basically telling them that Stain is inspiring them to actually join this cause. He's not going to like that one bit. But what I absolutely love is these new character introductions, because there's some cool designs that I definitely look forward to seeing with these new characters, what type of quirks they have, what are their true motivations. Like, sure, they're going to be motivated by Stain's ideology, but what is beyond that? Because the one guy who basically looks like a zombie, he's got purple skin, staples in his face. I'm really curious about that character. But then there's also a female villain who ended up killing a guy. There was blood all over the wall, but she ended up making like this weird pose, like if it was like arousing her. She was enjoying it. So I really like those two standout villains as of right now, but there was one other villain that dressed very similar like to Stain. Like, you saw the same garb, the same getup on his character. So it appears that there's going to be a fanboy amongst the villains that is going to be dressing like Stain. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the budding of ideologies between all of these villains, because we know villains typically don't get along with other villains. That's because they are villains. So getting to see this new dynamic popping up in My Hero Academia, I am really, really looking forward to. But let's move away from the villains right now, and let's talk about our favorite UA students, Midoriya, Todoroki, and Ida. Right now, they are currently healing their wounds in the hospital, and we have Gran Torino and Manuel coming to visit them. But they also have another visitor as well, and is Mr. Dog Chief himself. I wrote down his name. His name is Suragame. I'll just call him Dog Chief for right now because that is just easier to say. But Dog Chief comes in, and he's basically telling them, it's like, you kids did a great job bringing down Hero Killer Stain, but there are rules in place for unregistered heroes using their quirks to actually hurt other people. Even if you are going up against a villain who has killed people, you guys are still breaking the law. And I really do like this dynamic, is that even though they did a good job, there are still consequences for their actions in a way. And because they ended up doing this, Endeavor, Manuel, and Gran Torino, along with these three students, are basically getting punished for them going up against the rules. And Todoroki is absolutely pissed about this. And this is one of two of my favorite moments with Todoroki within this episode, of him just yelling back at Mr. Dog Chief, basically saying, it's like, what? Would you want us to let Ida and Hero Native die as Hero Killer Stain killed them? He's like, we're heroes. We're supposed to save people. But I love the line too, as Mr. Dog Chief basically says, and I'll paraphrase here, what? So every time you want to go out and save people, you want us to bend the rules? The rules are basically there for a reason. And Todoroki is just like, you dog, gets all pissed. But then, you know, everything kind of calms down, because Mr. Dog Chief is basically saying, it's like, you guys did a great job. And what we're willing to do is we'll end up giving the credit to Endeavor, because a lot of the burn marks on Stain could actually be said for Endeavor doing such things. So I like that. And then even though Midoriya, Todoroki, and Ida won't end up getting the credit, they still did a good job, and they are recognized by Mr. Dog Chief, because he even bows and says, as a fellow person who protects the peace, I definitely thank you for your services. So I really like that dynamic. And then we have Ida and Deku apologizing to Gran Torino and Manuel. That is a good moment. But then going back to consequences for this Stain arc, Ida is suffering the consequences right now, because sure, he feels bad for actually, roping in Todoroki and Deku into this revenge-fueled, death wish that Ida kind of had, but as we come to learn in this episode, the damage that was done to his arm, his left arm in particular, is really, really bad. He's got severe nerve damage, and he's got to get surgery in order to correct that. But his drive to become a better hero, he's going to be using this as like a reminder of like, this is what I was when I went up against Stain, and I don't want to be that ever again. So that's going to push him forward to get stronger, to become a better hero. And then once he becomes that hero, he will end up, fixing that mistake. The nerve damage in his left arm, in his left hand, will get healed. And it kind of mirrors Deku in a way also, because his right hand got messed up from him overusing and using One For All improperly. So seeing these two, coming to that realization, saying like, hey, we'll both do this together, we'll get stronger, is a really nice moment. But then Todoroki comes in with my second favorite moment in this episode, where he basically looks at them both, says, I'm sorry guys, I must be cursed. It seems all of my friends' hands when they go up against me or they are around me get injured. And Deku and Ida are just laughing. It's like, dude, we didn't know you could tell a joke. He's like, I'm not. I must be the hand crusher or something. So that is a really good moment in this episode. And then moving away from that, we actually get to see more of the internships, because we kind of forget that this week-long internship is still going on, and we're basically only on day 3 or day 4 of this internship, and there are just some funny moments. I'll breeze through them real quick. We had Bakugo in jeans at Best Genius, headquarters. That was a funny moment. I absolutely loved getting to see how pissed he was and him just saying, I want to go home. Really good moment. We had Kirishima and Tetsu, another good moment in there as well. And we got to see, that all of his friends kind of got the location alert on their phones, and only Todoroki was able to act. So he didn't just send that to Todoroki. All of his friends actually received that as well. And then was the Momo and Kenji moment. I feel so bad for Momo, because sure, she's doing all of these beauty ads with the hero that she's interning with, but they're not doing any hero work. And she is just so upset. She's like, we're supposed to be heroes. We're supposed to be doing heroic deeds, and yet she's filming a commercial. And then by the very end, she's like, all right, commercial's done. Let's go out and patrol. And that right there, it's like Momo and Kenji were absolutely ecstatic at that point. It's like, yes, let's go. Let's go be heroes. So I'm really glad that they are starting to at least get some hero training with that heroine they're kind of internship under. And the last one is Ochigo, was another funny moment as well, where she's just on the phone with Deku, she gets off, and then Gunhead comes over and it's like, oh, are you talking to your boyfriend? And she gets all flustered, and then we pan over to Deku, who's like, I was talking with a girl on the phone. That was absolutely amazing. Very funny moments within this episode, and it even goes into the All Might best moment of this episode. There's just so many good moments within this episode, but it's the All Might phone ringtone where it says, your phone is ringing, is here, your phone call is here. Whatever it was saying in that moment, I was like, that was amazing. That is definitely an anime only thing, but the fact that they added that in is just so funny. But even though that started out as a very funny moment, it got serious real quick between that phone call between Gran Torino and All Might, where we come to learn about All For One. Now, this is the name of this big bad villain working behind the scenes that All Might ended up fighting many years ago, and this is the same villain that ended up giving him that injury that is slowly sapping him of his power. And the fact that All Might said, the fact that All For One is able to operate with that injury I dealt him, this can't be good. So right now I am very curious as to see who is All For One and how is his connection to One For All going to be. And I know for a fact I am going to confuse All For One and One For All in the future, because it just gets confusing sometimes. Like, I'll be mentioning All For One, but maybe I'm saying One For All. So that back and forth will get tricky, I think, at points, but I think I'll be able to manage it. But I do like the mirror and the dynamic of the saying All For One and One For All, and this being the opposite sides of both good and evil. I really do like that. But the last thing that I just want to bring up in this episode was the backstory of Hero Killer Stain. We come to learn his name, which was Chizome, and his ideology stemmed from the fact that he wanted to be a hero based on seeing All Might's introduction becoming a hero. And once he ended up joining a private hero school, he saw just how every single hero at the school was just doing it for fame, for glory, for money. They're not doing it for the right reasons. So he dropped out, ended up, going to the streets, protesting, giving speeches about how the age of heroes needs to go back to the way it was. Heroes should not be doing this for fame or glory. They should be doing it for the right reasons. And once he realized that speech and talking about it would not cause any change, that's when he dedicated 10 years of his life to basically learning how to kill people. And then once he did that, he adopted the moniker of Hero Killer Stain, and that is how we see him now today. So getting that backstory kind of within that little YouTube video that one villain or like corrupt businessman was showing the other guy, I thought was very interesting. It was very different, but I liked that nonetheless. So that is basically all that went down in this episode of My Hero Academia. It was definitely a good conclusion to this Hero Killer Stain arc we've been having, and getting to learn more about the backstory of Hero Killer Stain, but also to see the ramifications of this arc are going to be moving forward with this new crop of villains popping up right now. And the fact that they're going to talk with Shigaraki, I am really looking forward to. So give me your thoughts down in the comments below, guys, of what you thought about this episode. What do you think about the Hero Killer Stain arc, but also Stain as a villain in general? So definitely leave your thoughts down below, and I'm really looking forward to episode 19 next week for My Hero Academia. But until then, I'll talk with you guys later. And remember, Plus Ultra. See you guys.